Okay, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to start the halachas of Chanuka. It's very nageu, and we don't have that long, that's the truth, and there's a lot to discuss. We've got the shilas of when to light, we've got the shilas what to light, how much to spend on Chanuka, how much to spend on the menorah, how much to spend on the oil, the wicks, the different timings, what happens if you're late, what happens if no one's around. There's the different shilas of going away, for example. People go away for Shabbos Chanuka, or even just for a night. Do you have to, where do you light, what do you do in such a situation? Shabbos Chanuka, by the way, is a very, very common shaila. There are two times that we always tell people not to travel, but everybody travels. One of them is Purim, and the other one is Chanuka. There's a causing halachic shilas when you travel, because after all, when you light, makes enough kamina. If you're sleeping there, if you're eating there, if you own the house, don't own the house, whatever. We'll have to discuss a lot of that. So today I want to just go into a little bit of a hagdama, just a bit of an introduction of exactly a little bit of the inyanim of Chanuka, and just some of the main points that we have to know, and then in Mitzvah Hashem we'll go through one by one some of the Eikah Shailas. Of course, we have to discuss the Eikah Shaila of what bracha to make on a donut. It's mamash not poshet. It's mamash not poshet. We're going to have to learn the sugya from the Gemara, from the Mishnah, all the way down to the Rishonim to see halacha l'maisa. We'll see if you're allowed to do that either. I don't know. But I'll upon him just to we'll have to talk about a lot of these Shailas, paying dreidel for money and all these sorts of things. A lot of different Shailas that come up. We'll get to that. So let's begin with a very simple introduction into the Heilige Chanuka. We know Chanuka is a very, very choshev yontif, extremely choshev yontif. In fact, the Lashon, which is interesting, of the Rambam says a Lashon, mitzvahs Chanuka chaviva ad ma'od. That means the mitzvah of Chanuka is extra choviv. Choviv means dear. It's very dear to people, Chanuka. Right? Why? So that's what the Rambam learns. The Shulchan Aruch also says, tzorich lizoim ha'oid ba'adlokas ner Chanuka. We have to understand, after all, we're dealing with the D'Rabbanan. It's not a D'Oraisa. It's the two Yom Tovim that are D'Rabbanan, or Purim and Chanuka. But it seems to be Chanuka is extra special, it's extra dear to people. People go the extra mile, as we'll talk about the Mahadran Min, Mahadran idea. People go more when it comes to Chanuka than most other times, and we have to understand what is it about Chanuka. Perhaps we could say on a simple level that the Rabbeinu Shalom did that for us also. The Rabbeinu Shalom went, perhaps Lifnim Mishuras Adin, went further than what he could have done and should have done, and perhaps needed to do for us. For example, by finding the oil with the Kohen Gadol's seal on it, which didn't need to be found, we could have used, as the Pnei Yeshua says famously, that it's Hutru B'tzibur, that because everyone's Tomei, then you could have used Tomei oil, but yet the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us an extra kiss, he gave us an extra hug, he gave us an extra embrace by finding that oil, which he didn't have to do, and that shows the extra hug, right? Just to give you an idea, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz famously says that imagine you see a woman bathing a baby, and how do you know if that is the mother? And how do you know it's a psagoita, it's a cleaner in the house that's giving a bath to the baby, whatever? How do you know the difference? How do you know which one it is? So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, very simple. He says, if when the woman takes the baby out of the bath and gives a kiss, then you know that's the mother, because a mother goes the extra mile. A parent goes the extra embrace, the extra love. The Rebbeinu Shalom, when it came to Chanuka, went the extra mile for us. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't have to allow us to find the oil that was tahor. We could have used Tomei oil, but the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I want to give you that kiss, I want to give you that hug. It's almost like the Medrash says, when Klal Yisrael crossed the Yam Suf, so we know there's different Midrashim and different Mefarshim, and not going into all the different Pshatim, but one idea the Medrash says, that when they crossed the Yam Suf, it wasn't just, soil and nice, and it wasn't muddy, whatever, but there was candies and sour sticks and all gishmak stuff coming from the walls of the water. Why? Just to make it even more gishmak. We have to realize in our own lives, the Rebbeinu Shalom sometimes does things and he gives us an extra hug, an extra kiss. We have to feel it, that's all. I have a cousin, lives on Sorotskin, an Israeli, a massive Talmud Chacham. He knows Shas with Rishonim, Baal Peh, back to front. Unbelievable. The man is a boki in Shas and Rishonim like I never saw before. He gives 5 Daf Yomi Shum every single day. He's an unbelievable person. He unfortunately lost a child a number of years ago. And he told me over the Maisa that when the child was very, very sick, so he had to take the child to hospital. And it wasn't easy. He had to go to Bnei Brak, that was the hospital specifically that the specialist was there. And he had to go backwards and forwards. And he said so many times, he had a Maisa who was walking on Sorotskin, and he was wondering if he had to get a bus with his sick daughter. It's not gishmak, he didn't have a car or anything, taxis were too expensive. What's he meant to do? So he has to schlep her on a bus, it's not gishmak. And somebody rolled down the window and said, would you like a ride? Where are you going? He said, well, I'm going to Bnei Brak. I said, oh, I'm actually going to Bnei Brak now. Come inside. Empty car. He couldn't believe it. And on the way back, he was in the hospital. He told me the Maisa, in the hospital, and someone said, Abadi, I'm going to Yerushalayim. Does anybody need a ride? He's like, well, I'm going back to Yerushalayim with my daughter. He said, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave a gzeira. A gzeira is a gzeira, and what can I do? His daughter was sick, and Rahman Letzlan Aleinu, he lost his daughter. And a gzeira is a gzeira, the Rebbeinu Shalom decided. But he said he felt the extra hug. He felt the extra kiss that the Rebbeinu Shalom was doing with an extra, right? Just like when Yosef went down to Mitzrayim, there was Rashi tells us Mufurish, the Pasuk, that there was the nice smelling spices. What do I need that for? Because when he was going down, it could have been done with the gas, with disgusting, horrible fumes, but it was done with a nice way. Sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom does something, he gives us the extra hug, the extra kiss, and we have to recognize it, we have to realize it. Hanukkah is exactly that Yontov. The whole idea of Hanukkah is that the Rebbeinu Shalom embraced us. He gave us the extra hug, the extra kiss, and that's why on Hanukkah we go the extra mile ourselves with Soma the Inyanim. So the Rambam says, in Perek Gimel, says the Rambam, during the second Beis Hamikdash, the Greeks, as we know, ruled over Eretz Yisrael, and they made terrible, terrible decrees against Klal Yisrael. And they wanted to destroy the religion, they wanted to get rid of Klal Yisrael, and they forbade Torah and mitzvahs, specific mitzvahs, whatever. And they went into the Beis Hamikdash, they were Metamer, the Chashmonaim came along, the sons of the Kohen Gadol, and they made a war, and they won the war, and they had power, by the way, people don't know this, for about 200 years, until Churban Bayis Sheni. That was exactly what happened over there. On the 25th Chof Hei of Kislev, we know that we won the war, we came into the Beis HaMikdash, we found the Pach of Shema that happened to have the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and there was a nace that it burned for 8 days. Now there's a Machlokes Rishonim, exactly what happened when. That's also not so simple. From the Rambam, at least how some Achronim learn the Rambam, is that they won the war on the 25th, but they lit the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash on the 26th. So why do we light on Chof Hei? Why do we light on the 25th? Zeicher to the nace. Okay, that possibly will be another answer to the Beis Yosef's kasha. The others, the Ma'aser Rekeach and other learned Pshat and the Rambam differently. They said no, forget. They started actually winning the war on the 24th of Kislev, and they lit the menorah on the 25th of Kislev, and therefore that's why we light on the 25th. So there's a shaila exactly how it works. There's a Meiri talks a lot about it. We're not going to go into the details, but just to know such a thing that there's a machlokes exactly what happened when over there. The biggest shaila on Hanukkah, and there are whole svarim with hundreds and hundreds of answers on this specific question, is why are there 8 days of Hanukkah? Really, there should be 7. Simply because, really, they found oil. So they found oil. That was enough for 1 day. So the rest of the days were a nace that it continued burning. That's 7 days. So really 7 days were a miracle, not 1. So why do we have 8 days? Right? That's the Beis Yosef's famous kasha. Like I said, there are entire svarim written on this question with hundreds and hundreds of answers. So we can answer, according to that, the Prichot, the Shlom's Pshat, and the Rambam, that actually that the very finding of the oil alone was actually a miracle. So that's miracle number 1. And the next 7 days was another one. Others give answers because they split up the oil. Others, when they put the oil in, they didn't put enough for 1 day. They put enough for a small amount. They split it up into 8 days because they knew that's how long it's going to take to get Torah and whatever, to get new oil. So they made it every single day. Or the pshat is they filled it up completely. The next day they came and it was full again. So there are many, many different answers to that. It's a great shaila to discuss Chanukah Mesibas and everything else. But just to know, this shaila does exist. By the way, there's a Minchas Chinuch. The Minchas Chinuch wants the Taina, according to one pshat, that it could be that in Chutz La'aretz, everyone's going to have to buy new menorahs when Mashiach comes. Because this fake of the Yom, they're going to have 9 days of Chanukah. Right? Just like they have 2 days of Yom Tov and Chutz La'aretz, they're going to have 9 days of Chanukah. Memela, all the menorahs that everybody buys, the fancy silver menorahs, they're going to have to get another branch because the Maisa, it's 9. But okay, whatever, it's one sheeter over there, which we're not going into. We do have to understand one question, which I'm not going to answer now, is why did Rabbeinu HaKadosh leave out Chanukah from the Mishnah? Why is there no Mesechtas Chanukah? There's everything else. There's Mesechtas Megillah, right? Ruvain, there's Mesechtas Megillah. There's Mesechtas Shabbos. There's Psachim. There's Sukkah. Every Yontov seems to have a Mesechta. Why does Chanukah not have its own Mesechta? I've had it brought down in many, many places in Shabbos and other Mesechtas. But why is there no Mesechtas Chanukah? Good question. Ask it at the Chanukah Mesiba. Let's move on, Rabbi Isai. Okay, like I said, I want to try to get to as many shilas as we possibly can. Is there a din Suda on Chanukah? Meaning, is it a Yontov? What exactly is the Geder of Chanukah? So if you look at the the Rishonim, and specifically the Rambam and many of the Rishonim say that it's Yemei Simcha. Yemei Simcha seems to say and seems to imply that it is a Yontov, and therefore if it's a Yontov, I should have a Suda, I should have meat, just like every other Yontov. In fact, the Tshuvas HaRashba, which is also brought down in Drashas Laran, that he says that Chanukah is a din Simcha Mamish. So it's a din Yontov. It's a din mamash. In fact, the Ravya brings down it's a din Yontov. You have to have a Suda with pas and bread and wash and everything else like that, right? Someone will say Pshat, the Briskerov explains Pshat in the Rambam, that the Rambam doesn't mean Simcha, meaning Yontov. It's coming la fuke, hesped and tainis, meaning you can't fast, you can't make a hesped. It's means Simcha of joy, but that means you just can't say a hesped and fast. But it doesn't mean that you have to have a Yontov Suda, because it's not a Yontov in that case. Lemaisa, the Ramah brings down that any Suda that a person makes lekoved the yoim, and he sings shiros v'sishpachos to the Rabbeinu Shalom. He sings about the nays, he talks about the nays, divrei Torah about the nays. Avada zuk Heilige Ramah. That is a sudas mitzvah, and that's gavaldik in that case. Okay, so that's the idea. But there's no halacha that a person has to eat meat or wash in that case. Moving on, Rabbi Sai. Like I said, we're going to try to quickly go through as much as we possibly can. The Gemara in Shabbos Chof Aleph on the base, which hopefully maybe in the morning, maybe we'll get to a little bit of halachas before the Yontov of Chanukah, is the Gemara says like this, that the mitzvah of Chanukah is ner, ish, ubeisai, which we have to understand. What is the din of Chanukah? This is already a long shayla which we're not going into. Those of you that have learned halachas and eres of Shabbos know this shayla very, very carefully. Is a din on you or is a din on the house? Meaning, if you're tenting, let's say in the middle of nowhere, you're going camping, and you take a sleeping bag, and you go sleeping in the middle of the forest, do you have to light menorah? Is there a place to light menorah? Or has it got attachment to a house? Right? Putting a menorah on a car, right? Is that considered to be, forget about Presumi Nissa and Kiddush Hashem, whatever. I'm just talking about the mitzvah of Chanukah. Are you Yotza? Because, or the Gemara says Ner Ish Ubeisai. That means Ner Ish Ubeisai seems to imply the mitzvah, says the Gemara, is dafka attached to the house in that case, and that's why the Shulchan Aruch says that it's one per household, right? That's what it is. In fact, the Gemara says, which we have to talk a lot about, but not now, is that if a person wants to be mahadar, then not only light one in the house, each person in the house should light one candle. If you want to be extra machmir, which I don't know how many people like to be machmir during the year, but it sounds like over here at Chanukah everybody wants to be machmir. And the Gemara says if you want to be mahadrin, mina mahadrin, if you want to go way beyond the letter of the law, then each person should light an extra candle every night of Chanukah, right? Beshama Besela, which way do you go? We're not going into it. It's very interesting, by the way, just to note that the whole year people are not looking for hummus. I don't go around too many houses, but I don't know how many of your houses or your friends' houses you ever went to on Chanukah and you see on the day number 6, it's got one candle there. And you're like, I think you might have made a mistake. It's day number 6 of Chanukah. And I'd be like, what do you mean? The Gemara says one. I'm doing what the Gemara says. I'm doing me'ikadin. I don't have to be machmeh. I have to be machmeh and light one, an extra one every single day. I'm not machmeh anywhere else. All of a sudden now I'm going to be machmeh, right, Eli? What's pshat? What's the pshat why we're machmeh over here? So I think that's what we said in the beginning. Right in the beginning was the whole idea of Chanukah, the whole takanos of Chazal came about because the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us that hug, he gave us that kiss, he gave us that embrace. He went beyond the extra mile. So we're showing the Rebbeinu Shalom on Chanukah, we're also going to do the same thing. Now we have also a machlokas rishonim. What does it mean mahadrin mina mahadrin? What exactly does that mean? So this is a famous machlokas rishonim. Just want to point it out to the olam. Shitas Tosfos. Tosfos holds that only one person in the home lights an extra candle, adds a candle every single time, and that's the minig of the Sfardim, interestingly enough, like Tosfos, whereas the Rambam says every single person in the home adds a new light every single night, which is the minig of the Ashkenazim, right? Which is how that's done. I'm not going to go into all the different halachas and different minhagim that Sfardim may have over here, but that is the basic idea of the Machlokes Rishonim. Now, we'll end with this shaila. How much money do we have to spend on Chanukah? There's different types of oils, there's different types of menorahs, right? Very good. What exactly is it? So I want to just tell you a few ma'amokomis because I think this is important. Okay? Aaron Dov, this is a very good one. The Aruch HaShulchan comes along and says the Aruch HaShulchan that Dalud Koisus and Ner Chanukah, there is no share. That means there is no amount how much a person has to spend because it's Persumi Nisa. And it's unlike any other mitzvah. We know the Gemara in Baba Kama says that a person is mechuyev to spend only up to a third. When it comes to Ner Chanukah and Dalad Koisus, there is no share over here. Okay, which means that there's no minimum and there's no maximum. right? You just keep on going. It's a mordecai mitzvah. That's number one. Number two, the shita mukubetzes that the Gemara brings down. It's a Gemara in Beitzah Tazayin number base, but the shita mukubetzes says it very clearly. The shita mukubetzes says, and he also brings a ritva, that the ritva says that we know, the Gemara tells us, there are certain things that are not included in the cheshbon when between Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. We know that when Rosh Hashanah comes, the Rebbeinu Shalom makes an exact calculation how much money you're going to receive. What you spend, for example, on Shabbos, and what you spend on your kids going to Cheder and Yeshiva, whatever it may be, is not included in the cheshbon of how much money you were allotted from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. There's certain exceptions, meaning they're not included in the cheshbon, that's on Hashem's bill, you can spend whatever you want, whatever's necessary. Says the Shita Mukubetzes, and again he brings a ritva, that he says not only Hotzar Shabbos and Hotzar Yontov is not part of the cheshbon from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, meaning you get the money back. Hu hadin, any expense of any mitzvah is included. The Gemara says not that way. Says the Ritva, says the Shita Mukubetzes. The Gemara just brought an example that was more negeya. Just Shabbos, it comes every week, so it just said that. But it means, according to that, whatever you spend on Hanukkah for the mitzvah, not for your own personal pleasure, but for the mitzvah, is not included in the cheshbon. It's on Hashem's tab, it's on His bill, and He'll get the money back. So with that in mind, we should be spending a lot more money than we thought we should. In that case, there's a tshuva in the Tzvi Tiferes, which I think is the Pischei Tshuva, where he brings also the same idea that any mitzvah, Shabbos, Yontov, Pesach, and he says Chanukah as well, he says it clearly in Siman Nun Dalet, that it's excluded from the cheshbon. That means you get the money back, which is amazing. Now the Mishnah Berurah tells us, Halacha L'Maaseh, the Chofetz Chaim, Tofeshayin Gimel, that it's toiv for a person to be matriach himself, to have a nice menorah according to his means. Obviously, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But if you can afford a nicer menorah, says the Mishnah Berurah, absolutely you should. In fact, the Behetiv says Dafka silver Behetiv is better in that case. Obviously, you can't use Meiser money for that, but if you can afford it, you should definitely try to be mahada the mitzvah with a nice menorah, and it's definitely a hidden mitzvah in that case without any shaila whatsoever to do that over there. Okay, Rabbi Sai, there's a lot of shailas that we have to discuss. We have to discuss number one, who has a chiyuv to light, the minig of women not to do malacha once the zman of lighting comes, the halacha that men are not allowed to do certain things once the zman of adlaka comes. Nafkamina to be learning Torah. If you want to learn Torah, if you want to eat mazonis or something like that before the zman of adlaka comes, what's the din over there? Erev Shabbos went to light. Matzah Shabbos went to light, where to light on Shabbos Chanukah, the types of oil exactly that are nageya, that they sell in the stores, which one to look out for, which one to try and get. In Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow we'll discuss more of those halachas.